Hey Internet, Harris here. A couple years ago, I reviewed the first generation Kindle Scribe, and I had some mixed feelings about it, mainly because it was just too thin and slippery of a device. But once I put a case on it, I liked it. Now, Amazon came out with a new Kindle Scribe much more recently, and I actually like this device all around a lot more. But it's almost the identical device. So I've just warmed up more to the Kindle Scribe. It's not necessarily this one, but we're going to talk about it nonetheless with my thoughts of the Kindle Scribe in 2025. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so if you saw one of my recent videos, I actually reviewed the Remarkable Paper Pro, my first Remarkable device, and it's really impressive. It's built like a tank, feels super solid. And I said in my review, I think if Apple made an e-ink device, it would probably feel and look pretty similar to this. But it's really expensive and it's a pretty large device. However, it doesn't support Kindle books or Audible books. So for me, it just wasn't the right device. But now I've been back to the Kindle Scribe, which is smaller, cheaper, and obviously does support Kindle ebooks as well as Audible audiobooks natively on this device, which is a big feature for me as someone who does a lot of e-reading. There's also a couple new software features to try to fix some limitations with the past generation or past software generations of the Kindle Scribe. But first, let's just talk about the hardware because it's basically identical. From the back, it basically is identical. And in my mind, it's just a very uninspiring piece of metal. Basically, kind of this gunmetal gray, boring metal. It's got little bumps on the back, so it works well if you're writing flat on a desk, but I found it generally just a little bit too thin and slippery to comfortably hold while I was using. So I did opt for Amazon's leather case, which I would not have paid full price for because I'm very cheap, but I did find this on refurb for like 30 bucks, and I actually love it. It feels like one of those business executive folios. It's a really nice finish. It keeps the pen locked in securely with also the pen tab at the bottom, and I love using this folio. Last year, I used this origami case with a cool Starry Night design, which I still like, but I just wanted something a little bit more premium this time around. This is made with admittedly pretty kind of cheap materials, so I'm a big fan of the new leather case that I've been rocking. Now, Amazon is now offering a new white bezel around the device. Everything else about the hardware is the same, but there is this white bezel, which I actually do like. It just feels a little bit friendlier to me and a little bit more like a piece of paper or a book. I didn't think I would like it, but I do. I like it. I think it gives it a nice, subtle flair. It's still simple and pretty minimal. Still has the same large bezel on the left-hand side of the device, or the right hand if you flip it upside down, which gives you a place to hold onto the device. So I like that. Now, if you opt to go for the 64 gigabyte version instead of the 16 gig version, you can actually get a metallic jade colored back, which I think would be pretty sweet. It wouldn't really matter that much to me because I always have mine in a case either way. And I don't think you need 64 gigabytes of storage. My 16 gigs is plenty enough for me, especially if you don't have your entire library downloaded, which you don't really need to. You only need, a few at a time. I think 16 gigabytes is plenty. Now, the size of this is nice. You can hold it in one hand, no problem. But I'm just thinking back to previous times in my life. If I were still in Boston taking the train into work every day, this is probably too big of a device for me. I want something that could easily hold in one hand with people kind of pushing around with a little bit of a sense of privacy. So I think the standard Kindle Paperwhite with a much smaller design is something that I would want in that state of my life where I just had a lot of people around me all the time. It's something that I think would just be a little bit too big and that I definitely couldn't fit into my winter coat pocket. But now that I'm not taking the subway every day, I think a larger device like this would make sense for me. And Amazon did come out with a new stylus as well, which I actually do really like. There is no premium or non-premium version. It's just one option. And it does have the secondary button, which works very well as a highlighter. It has the eraser, which is much more satisfying for erasing. Feels like a real eraser. And overall, the writing experience is excellent. It's much less scratchy and textured than the Remarkable Paper Pro, which was very gritty. It really did feel like I was kind of shaving off part of the screen with the stylus, not in a bad way, just in a very tactile way. This is much smoother. It's a much more pampered experience. It flows very nicely. But what's nice about the Kindle Scribe as compared to the Remarkable or even the iPad is that it uses EMR technology, or electromagnetic resonance technology, which basically means that you don't have to power the stylus at all. All the technology is basically happening inside the Kindle, so you don't have to use Amazon's. You can use any third-party one that supports EMR technology, including a Samsung Galaxy Tab stylus. So if you want a stylus with a little bit different texture, different writing style, different thickness, different grip, different color, any of these things, you can try out a variety of different styli and find the one that works best for you. But I'm a big fan of the one that comes with it by default. I think it works great. It's very responsive. The highlighter is a great function, and the eraser is really nice. Now, battery, as you might expect, is just, it's Kindle battery. It's wonderful. You know, I've been using this for the past couple weeks. I'm at 14% on my Kindle right now. It's something you'll probably charge every 2 to 5 weeks, depending on how much you use it. If you go on vacation and you forget it and you come back 2 months later, it's still gonna have charge. It holds battery for a while. So next I want to talk about the reading experience and then the writing experience. So the reading experience is what I think a lot of people were disappointed with previous software editions of the Kindle Scribe, because they thought you could actually just mark up your book, and you couldn't. Now, supposedly the big new Kindle Scribe software feature is the active canvas that lets you write anywhere on a Kindle book. And this is cool, and it does technically work, but it's just still an awkward system. Sure, you can write anywhere you want, but then Amazon's going to trap that into a box and reformat all the text around it. So it's kind of hard to predict exactly where it's going to land, how it's going to look, and it's just nowhere as intuitive, obviously, as a book and a pen or a pencil. But I found that if you kind of just scribble something, see what box Amazon gives you, and then erase and go back in to make your highlights, it works. It's okay. It's not bad. For me, this is not a game-changing feature, and still just kind of a limited way to interact with your Kindle. But the feature that I actually really do appreciate is the extended margin feature, which basically lets you have the left margin basically split screen with the text. You can bring it back and forth, but what this really does is use the sticky notes feature, and I've always liked the sticky notes. So sticky notes are when you highlight something in your text, and then it gives you free reign to write a comment on it, and then you close it, and it just shows you a little sticky note icon above the text. Not super useful if you're just flipping through a book and you're kind of looking to see what that highlight or that note that you took was. However, if you go into the overall notes view and you scroll through, you can see all your highlights and your underlines, but you also see those sticky notes in the original handwriting. So I just like that it integrates with the rest of your notes and highlights when you're looking through that view. And this extended margin integrates with those sticky notes and basically throws them onto the side of your reading experience, which you can, again, open or close. So I think this is actually a pretty good system. And what's nice about this is that it'll actually sync with the Kindle app on your phone or iPad or Mac if you want to see those handwritten notes later, which is something that you can't do with the active canvas. The one thing that is super useful, though, is that you can just underline text while you're reading, and it will convert that into a digital underline. And similarly, you can hold down the little action button on the side and highlight, and it will turn that into a highlight. So that's a really fast way of highlighting and underlining as you go, which I appreciate that feature. Now, it does have Whisper Sync, which means if you have both the Kindle version and the audiobook version, you can swap back and forth between the two, but it doesn't support it at the same time like you can do on the iPhone or the iPad, which I really wish they would add at least automatic page flips so I could be looking at the text while listening to the audio, and it would either highlight the words as it's reading, which would be ideal, or at the very least just flip the page as the audible narration goes to the next page. As it is, you have to choose either one or the other. You can either listen to it or you can read it. You can't do both. And to me, that's a kind of a big limitation, and what makes the iPad pretty appealing if you're someone who really likes to have both the Audible and the Kindle version. Now, the writing experience is pretty good. You do get several font options and style options with the pen to choose what you want, and that works pretty well. I find it to be accurate and responsive, and the latency is pretty low. The canvas is pretty small with this display, so you're definitely not getting a full-size piece of paper. Just keep that in mind. There's also very few templates. They have added more, which is nice, but it'd be awesome if you could import custom templates, or if they had some type of template marketplace where you could find more custom ones. I think that would be super valuable for students. And ultimately, the note-taking experience is very simple and fairly primitive. It's just basically a step above paper and pencil, but it is a step above because you can sync with your phone, can sync with your computer and stuff like that. It's not super robust, but it works. And if you want to use this for a daily agenda or a to-do list or for taking notes or journaling or whatever, you can do all those things with the template that you want, with the pen style that you want, with some black and white highlighting and underlining annotation. There's the undo and redo. You can erase strokes. You can erase the whole page. You can copy, paste, resize, move things from page to page, etc. And there's now also a grid overview, so you can quickly go through a document and say, okay, there's that thing I was looking for, there's that math equation I was working on earlier, or there's that picture I drew, whatever. So that's a nice thing. You can also mass edit pages now. You can select multiple pages and move them or delete them or reorder them, which is a nice change as well. Now there is the new summary AI tool, which seems fine. When I tested it, it basically just gave me what I put down back. Maybe that'll be useful for more complex or confusing or scattered notes. I was generally already summarizing things I was reading, so it was kind of giving me a summary of my summary, which was just the same summary. And then the handwriting refining tool is actually really nice. I probably wouldn't use this all that often because my handwriting is decently legible, but it just goes to show that this can process handwriting for searching, for instance, and it does a really nice job of translating that into a clean handwriting that you can customize the font. So it doesn't just dump it as like typed text, it dumps it as like handwritten text with handwriting that you can erase. So that's pretty nifty. Okay, now a few nitpicks. One, there's no rotation memory, so it's all or nothing. If you rotate a document into landscape, say it's like a scan of a landscape document and you rotate it, it'll change everything you open into landscape until you turn it back into portrait. So I wish the Kindle would remember which orientation each individual document was. Doesn't seem that complicated. Or maybe just have an auto rotate feature, but instead it's manually turning it back and forth. And it won't keep a memory of a document by document basis. It'll just change everything into portrait or landscape. Secondly, when you create a new notebook, it doesn't auto capitalize it, which is just so annoying. Like, come on, we're adults. Please have auto capitalization. Another big one is that you can't search through your handwriting, which is kind of crazy. I mean, that's just seems like a very basic technology that devices have these days. I really wish you were able to search through your handwriting. And I saw someone comment on my Remarkable Paper Pro review saying, oh, just put your keywords in your title. I was like, I'm not going to put 2,000 words into my title. That's just not that useful. So handwriting recognition, I wish they would just add that. That'd be really nice. Okay, you can't do custom templates. I wish you could import templates in. That would be really handy. You can't even duplicate pages. So if you were to import a document, like say you have a template you like, you send it into your device as a PDF, you can't duplicate that and just reuse that as a template. So even the backdoor approach doesn't really work. Split screen, probably not super likely on a 10.2 inch display, but it would still be nice to be able to take notes on a note and then have a reading document on the side. Unlikely, but I would love to see that. I wish there was a quick switch mode, like maybe you swipe down from the top and it'll say, okay, here's the last 3 things you opened, so you can quickly go back and forth between your reading and your notebook and back and forth. There is a recent item on your home screen, but that requires a few extra taps. I wish you could just have a quick menu to go back between the recent things you're doing, especially if you're reading and taking notes at the same time in a separate document. And lastly, layers would be awesome. I didn't even know this was a feature I wanted until I saw it in the Remarkable Paper Pro, but the ability to have multiple layers on one notebook, on one page, allows you to, like for instance, if you're quizzing yourself, you can hide the answer and then show it with a layer. That's a cool feature. I probably wouldn't use it all the time, but for studying, that would be really handy. So at the end of the day, I am a big fan of the Kindle Scribe. There's not a whole lot that has changed with this specific model. So if you can find the previous generation for cheaper, I'd say go for it. But the writing experience is super solid. It doesn't have many bells and whistles, so it will work for students. It will work for sending, PowerPoints and PDFs, for reading your ebooks, borrowing books from Libby and other library systems like that. But it lacks a lot of advanced features. You're not going to put in cute notes and stickers and all these extra features that you're going to get. You're not going to have voice recording like you're going to get on the iPad. So it does lack a lot of features, but if you're looking for something that is a step above handwriting in terms of auto backup and erasing and moving things around and stuff like that, and just having one device instead of tons and tons of notebooks, this will do that. And it's going to be less distracting than your iPad, and it's going to be cheaper than your iPad, although it kind of depends on which iPad you get. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I think I probably could use this if I was still a student, and I would enjoy the experience. I think there's a lot of pros and cons. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.